Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to now install WordPress. And like we talked about before, we're going to go to wordpress.org to download those installation files and application files. You don't want to go to wordpress.com, just wordpress.org. So we're going to go right here where it says download WordPress, and it will bring us to this page, and we're going to be downloading the latest one. Yours will probably have different numbers depending on when you watch this video, but go ahead and download the latest WordPress, and it's going to start downloading a zip file, and I'm going to open that up when it's done, and we'll see what's in there. If I open up the folder, you'll see there are 3 folders and a bunch of files that are available for us to use. So these are the files that we're going to be downloading onto our web server here in just a minute. So keep track of where those are at, and you may need to extract them if your computer needs you to extract a zip file. All right, so now we need to go to our hosting site, and this could be anything. It could be JustHost, One-on-One, iPage, GoDaddy, whatever your hosting is. It's going to differ a little bit depending on what your hosting is. For our class, we're going to be creating a subdomain to put our WordPress site into. This is not something you would usually do. Usually you would just put it on the root level of the domain if you're building a website for somebody, but where we've got a number of different sites that we're using with one domain, then we're going to want to make a subdomain. So we'll go ahead and do that first. And again, this is optional. You wouldn't necessarily have to do this. So in One-on-One, you would just go to the domain that you want to create a subdomain on. Click on subdomains, and you would create a subdomain here, add a subdomain, and we'll call it, I think I've already got a CMS, we'll call it WP for WordPress if I don't already have one. Okay, I think the rest of the class did CMS and it's right there, but we'll do that one. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you call it. When you see that one, we do want to make sure it's pointing to a folder that's also called WP, just for ease of use. So it'll bring up all our folders that are available in just a minute. And we'll go ahead and create a new folder, and we'll call it by the same name. You wouldn't have to necessarily have it be the same name, but we'll go ahead and add that one. And make sure it's coming up. Okay, there we go. It's highlighted, WP. So we'll go ahead and save that. So we just created a subdomain, and we also pointed it to a folder by the same name. So now if we go back and look at our subdomains, we should see, well, in a minute we will, hopefully, it should have a slash and then the WP folder following it. And that's where we want to go ahead and put our WordPress files. Okay, another thing we need to do before we install WordPress is we need to, and this will happen, you for sure have to do this on every hosting. I'm going to go back to the control panel and we're going to go to our MySQL databases. So wherever you create a database in your hosting, and we're going to create a database. Now, One-on-One is very different. It doesn't let you choose your own name or anything. Usually you'd be able to name your own database, but we'll give it a description here. Database for WordPress, and we'll give it a password. And make sure this is the first step in security for WordPress. Make sure your database has a super strong password and special characters, uppercase, at least 8 characters, all that kind of stuff. Make sure it's a very good password. Okay, now this information that came up here is what you're going to need when you start installing WordPress. WordPress has to know what empty database is going to start storing its content into. So this is I will usually take a print screen of this information, and I will use it when I set up my WordPress, because especially with one-on-one, it's got some really crazy names in here. So, and you also need to remember that password that you just made as well, which is not showing here. So write that down. Make sure you have all of this information. In different hostings, you'll have to get this information in different ways. You can always call them and get help with setting up databases or getting these hosting names and things like that you need. Okay, so back to our files. We're going to now go to FileZilla, and we're going to start FTPing all of those WordPress files over to our account. All right, so I was at that one. Okay, I'm going to log in and get connected, and we should see our WP folder that we created. We can even go back in. It was still kind of looking at it before and double check that we did get that domain to point to the right place. So I'll just quickly go in and look at my subdomains again, and make sure it's pointing. Yes, so we did want that WP subdomain to point to the WP folder, and you can see that that did happen. So we're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to find where I put the WordPress zipped folder, and mine was in my downloads. So I will open up all of these files. So I'm opening up the WordPress folder, and then it's got the 3 folders and all these other files. We want this all of the files from there to go directly into the WP domain. I've seen some students make the mistake of just grabbing the WordPress file and putting it in. You need to open it up first and grab all of these files individually and put them. Now this would be normally the root, not a subdomain folder, but right at the root of your domain if you were just building a website for a client. But like I said, we're organizing ours into a subdomain. So there's where they would all go. At the root of our subdomain, or the root of your domain, is where these would go. Okay, so it's going to take a minute, and we'll let that run for just a minute, and then we'll come back and see if it installed okay. Okay, while this finishes downloading, I just wanted to show you how different it might look in a different hosting company. So I logged into my iPage, and I opened up a database that I'd already created. You can see even getting to your databases looks different here. So I went to databases, link here, and then, now it's going to be slow. And then I added a new database with this symbol here. And once I created it, I could highlight it, and there's a little generate code button. And that's where you would get some information about the host name, your database name, your username, and then whatever password you'd use when you created the database. So it can look very different. In this one, I was able to name my own database, WPCMS. So be aware it can be very different depending on what your hosting company is. Okay, I think it might be finished. Okay, so we can go down. We can see that it says successful transfer 1,508 files. There weren't any failed files that went over, so check that and make sure they all went over. And it should have your 3 files and all those other files that came over. So lots of information was in there. Okay, so now we go to the same location that we just downloaded on the browser. So in our case, we did make a subdomain, so we do want to type in the subdomain. So that was WP, and this domain in one-in-one. And when I go there, it should look like this. So if you get a page not found or something like that, you do want to make sure all of the files went over. So you might want to just start over and reload them all again, delete these all, and try it again. You might have had a disconnect during while they were transferring or something like that. So just make sure they were all there, and you should have it look a lot like this, where it's asking for the first step in installation is your language. Okay, so at this point, we'll go ahead and say continue for English. And it says, okay, before you go on, you're going to need to know the database name, username, database password, database host, and you're going to need to decide on a table prefix. Once you have all this information, you're probably good to go. So again, that we got all that. In iPage, we look like that. In One-in-One, we did that print screen that I have on my desktop that I can get the information from. So be sure you get that database information as you create your new database. So we're going to go. We have that information, so we're going to go ahead and go. So I'm going to minimize this so I can look at the print screen that I made, which is right here. Bring that up so that I can plug in the right information. So here it's asking for the database name, which in my case is the DB73. And your name again might be different depending on your hosting. Make sure I got that right. Okay, and the username, it's right here. I wish this wasn't an image, I could just paste it. And then the password that I use, and it will show your password. So I will kind of move this out of the way for a minute so you don't see it. And then it's going to ask, oh, I guess you're going to be able to see it anyway. And it's going to ask for your database name. I'll have to change my password. And this one right here is the database host, the host name. I'm going to type that one in. This one's DB7. And all the numbers here are the same, but they've got a little bit different. This one's .db.1in1.com. Okay, I'm just double checking. I think I got a number on here. Okay, you also want to change the name of the table prefix. So this will make a whole bunch of tables in your database, and it will all be prefixed with WP. This is a target for hackers. They know that the tables are always beginning with WP, so I would just give it a different prefix. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll just put my name in there, and I will hit submit, and we'll see. And it says it did not connect, so that's okay if you get this. I'm going to go back. It says either your username and password. We can't connect to the saver, so I probably just typed something in that was wrong. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to pause and figure it out, and then I'll come back on. Okay, I had actually typed in the wrong password. So once I corrected that, you should get to this point. If you typed in all the right database names and passwords and usernames, you should get to the point where it says, all right, Sparky, you've made it through this part of the installation. We're ready to go. So once you click installation, it will start installing WordPress for you. And we'll give it a minute. Okay, this screen should come up. It's going to want a site title, and this you can change later, so you can put whatever you want, your company name or whatever the name of the website or whatever it's for. And then this username and password is how you're going to log into WordPress online. So you do need to remember this and create a really strong password. I would do your own password though. So go ahead and put in your username you want to use. And then you don't have to use their password, but theirs definitely looks like a great one. And you can, again, I'm probably going to use the same one as I used before, but it was wrong last time, so you guys never did really see what it was. That's kind of weak. Definitely try to get it as strong as you can. Mine's medium. And I would recommend trying to get it strong though. And then an email. Okay, if this last checkbox, if while you're working on your site, you don't really want search engines to crawl it, you don't worry about SEO rankings and things like that, you can click that so that you don't have to worry about that right now. But if you don't mind it being indexed and searched while you're creating it, you can just leave it unchecked. This can also be changed later. So either way, you can leave that checked or unchecked. Okay, remember your login and password. And go ahead and click install. And it says it's been installed. Thank you and enjoy. And now we can go ahead and log in. Okay, you'll notice that the URL is simply the subdomain and the domain, and then it's wp-login. And that's how you can come back and log in anytime. So we're going to go ahead and use that login and password we just set up to log in to WordPress Online. This is not our database. This is just logging into WordPress. And it will let us in. Okay, you can also use WP Admin. Will also get you to that login. If I take away, this is the dashboard that we're going to be working with WordPress, but just note that if I take away the WP Admin and just go to my subdomain, it's actually put a little empty website onto my machine with one page, and there's my company that I typed in, so whatever word you used for your title, that's going to show up there. It's using the, I think, 2017 theme automatically. It's already got a little bit of content in there. But we're going to be making it our own website, and we're going to be changing the theme altogether. But do note that it already has a little bit of a website ready to go for you. You toggle back and forth between the website here as well, or you can just, like I did, I just took that off. But you can toggle back and forth between the website and your dashboard just by clicking up here. So that's getting it installed, and we won't go any further with this video, but hopefully you got to this point with your installation and you're ready to go.